Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah. Excited to see people. MashaAllah, that's filling up fast. And I know you guys probably can't see it, but I see the participants for 23, 24. MashaAllah, it's getting higher and higher every moment. MashaAllah. So good to have everyone here. Very excited for this. This is the most popular webinar we have ever done. MashaAllah, I haven't checked recently, but the last time I checked, we had 360 registrants for this. So inshallah, very exciting. Yes, the chat is turned on. It looks like. Are you able to chat with everyone? Can everyone see the chat? Yep, there you go. So while we just wait for people to join, maybe people could just put in the chat. I was going to ask this a little later, but just put your name and where you're joining us from. That would be really helpful. So put your name and where you are joining the webinar from. You can just go to chat and send that to everyone, inshallah. So you can make sure it's working. Mashallah. We have Massachusetts, Boston, Atlanta, Ontario. MashaAllah. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Look at all these people. California, Virginia, Utah, Texas. Yeah, there were a lot from Texas, mashallah. The Texas is where it's at these days with Islam, mashallah. I went to Dallas fairly recently, and it was just crazy how many people were there. How many Muslims have moved there? Let's see, what else do we have? Sorry, we have West Virginia, California, more Texas, mashallah. Very exciting. I know they might not be here, but there's an interesting issue with this webinar. I had put state because I sort of assumed that most people would be from the US and Canada, but I started getting messages right and left from people saying, there's no way to put a foreign country. And mashallah, I just told them to put any random state, and they joined from all over the world. We have people from Pakistan, from Australia, from throughout Europe. So it's all very, very exciting, alhamdulillah. So we'll get started in just a moment or two. Mashallah, we're up to 73 people here. Inshallah. What is and second. Let's see, mashallah. Missouri, West Virginia. This is so cool. I like, mashallah. I don't think of Muslims in West Virginia. That's very exciting. I have family in West Virginia. Inshallah, I need to visit. And I have family right here in the webinar, mashallah. There is my wonderful, beautiful wife, Sister Ruhina. So as I'll be talking about, this topic is very dear to both of our hearts, and alhamdulillah, we planned this webinar together. We planned the class, which we're going to be talking about at the end of the webinar together. So I'm very excited to have her here. Gonna say salam to everyone.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, everybody.
Can you just tell us like a second or one or two things about yourself?
Sure. I have been an English teacher for many years and a homeschooler now for 6 years to our wonderful children, although our daughter did go back to school a few years ago. I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I love literature, especially Victorian literature. And yeah.
MashaAllah. There's a lot more, but alhamdulillah, we'll leave that unsaid. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen any second now. Let's go share screen. MashaAllah, up to 94. Okay, is my screen shared properly? Alhamdulillah. Awesome. Let me do this, which I meant to do. Oops. At the very beginning. So one of my frustrations when I've gone to webinars is I always want the slides and I end up taking lots of notes or screenshots. So I want to try to solve that problem for you up front by including by putting in the chat the link to all the slides that I'm going to be sharing. Okay, and we can I'll have Ruhina uh, post that again from time to time, just for people who join a little later. And everything here, inshallah, it's going to be recorded, and it will, so you don't need to worry. Of course, taking notes is a great way to learn and get barakah in your time. Sorry, Omar was just here. Could you come back on the camera, Omar, for a moment? MashaAllah, Omar is a very impressive young man that we're going to be hearing about a little bit later. So inshallah, Omar, could you just briefly introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. Inshallah, I'm really excited to hear about all the great things we're going to go over. My name is Omar Hamoda. I am Egyptian American high school senior. I go to a school called Milton Academy here in Milton, Massachusetts. And yeah, I'm so excited.
Yep. So a little bit later in the webinar, we're going to bring Omar back. He's being very modest. There's a lot more to him than meets the eye, but we'll save that as a little teaser for what's coming later. So you guys can go off camera for now, and inshallah I will start with this. So Bismillah. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for coming. As I said, this was the most subscribed to webinar we've ever had. We have over 360 registrations. The numbers are keep growing. We have 108 people in here right now. So just a few little housekeeping things. The chat is enabled, so you are able to look at that. I'm not probably going to be able to look at the chat, but if there's anything important, Ruhina or Omar can alert me to it. But if you have questions about any of the content or things that you want to discuss at the end of the webinar, then you should use the Q&A. Don't put them in the chat, but put them in the Q&A box, and that way we'll all be able to see those things. So without further ado, we will keep on moving. If you have questions, again, put them in the chat, and Ruhina or Omar can try to answer them. If they can't, they can speak to me and try to solve any problems. So we already did the first part. If you haven't had a chance, if you just arrived, you can share in the chat where you're joining from. But I'm also going to turn on a poll. I can figure out how to do it. Polls, and we're going to do the demographics poll. All right, so a box should have popped up for you where you have a chance to answer, are you a student or a parent? Is that showing up for you? Yeah, I see some people. So you should be able to click into that. It's always good to see oh, subhanAllah, the second one's supposed to say high school student. So it says middle school, middle school. It's supposed to be middle school, high school, college, parent, my mistake. Oh, we did college twice. I don't know what's going on, subhanAllah. Inshallah. Everything else looks okay. It looks like maybe, yeah, I think I might have messed that up. All right, so we have 70 responses so far. And 75, mashallah, 2/3 of you have participated, mashallah. I think I did mess something up with this student thing because the number of middle school and high school is identical. Um, uh, okay, I saw a question just because we're in a point where I'm able to do that. I'll let you ask, Sarah. What was your question?
Actually, this is my mom's account,
Okay.
but I think I accidentally put the hand up. Didn't
Okay,
mean.
no problem. Okay. So going back to this. Okay, we're gonna end the poll. We have, mashallah, about 80% of you joined, and here are the results. Like I said, I messed up the first question. It looks like most people are students. It's hard to see whether you're middle school or high school. We do have some college students here, which was something really interesting to me. When I designed this originally, when I had it in mind, I was thinking, I'm really looking for middle school and high school, but a lot of college students, even graduate students, wrote, and some parents wanted help with this. So but mashallah, we have a lot of parents here as well, and so on. And then in terms of grades, very good mix, sort of across the board. Most people, mashallah, we have a lot of public school, a lot of Islamic school, some private school, homeschool, mashallah, and college as well. So lots of great people. It's always good to see who's here. So before we really get into it, it's always important just to refresh our niyyah and say a conscious Bismillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so just to give you a little background about myself, I know some of you know me, but a lot of you are brand new, so I just wanted to introduce myself. So my name is Hamzah Henshaw. Alhamdulillah, I became Muslim in 1994 when I was 15 years old. I was at a boarding school outside of Boston, and that's a whole nother story. There's a good thing on YouTube about it if anyone's interested. Alhamdulillah, from that school, I went on to Harvard, where I graduated in 2001 with a degree in NELC, Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations. And I began my career in Islamic finance, but fairly quickly I transitioned over to education. So I have more than 20 years of experience as an educator. In the last 11 years, I've been at New England's first full-time Islamic school, which is called Al-Noor Academy in Mansfield, Massachusetts. Alhamdulillah, among my many responsibilities, other than teaching English and being, assistant head of school and a lot of other things that I've done over the years, I have, throughout my time at Al-Noor, been the guidance counselor, and I've placed hundreds of Muslim students at many of the country's best colleges, almost all of the different Ivy League schools, and many, many more. Alhamdulillah, I am the author of the Substack newsletter. And inshallah, I founded 5 Before College, this company to help Muslims maximize the return of their college investment in this world and the next. So trying to help Muslim students succeed not just in academia, not just get into these great colleges, but also, much more importantly, to help them succeed eternally in the akhirah. So if you've been to my webinars before, you've probably seen this before, but I want to just very briefly go over it. The reason for this somewhat unusual name, 5 Before College, is twofold. One is that the path to college does not begin your junior or senior year. The path to college begins, I say, 5 years before college. Okay, so that brings us way back to 8th grade. And that's because essentially, when you're applying to college, they don't just look at your grades and things from the end of your time. Pretty much from 9th grade on, they look at not just your grades, but everything you're doing, all of your extracurriculars, all the interesting things, the things which make you unique. Your hisab starts in 9th grade. So if you start thinking about this in 8th grade, that means you're going to hit the ground running in 9th grade and be able to do really, really well. Now, today's topic is obviously about study skills, and I'm so glad to see a lot of the younger students here, because obviously this is one of the most important things that we can do. The other reason for the 5 before college name is that it's based on the 5 before 5 hadith, one of my favorite hadiths. One of the reasons I started my Substack, which is called 5 before 5, is based on this hadith. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, take benefit of 5 before 5. Your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your busyness, and your life before your death. So mashallah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam packed so much wisdom into this. So he talked about take advantage of your youth before your old age. So most of the people here are either youth themselves or they're parents of youth. And so what is your job? How do you take advantage of your youth? One thing is by being the best student that you can possibly be. And so really today's session is focused in on that very first point, take advantage of your youth before your old age. And one of the best ways, we're not going to talk about this too much today, but one of the best ways to be a strong student is to really be a great reader and to read a lot. We have to take advantage of our health before our sickness. This is where we need to focus on our body. We need to take care of our body. Often happens through athletics, right? I can't tell you how important interscholastic athletics were for me. When I was in high school, you learn so much outside of the classroom, on the field, and so on. And also wellness, mental health is critical. If we're feeling very anxious, that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. You can't really achieve. Wealth before poverty, right? This is where in high school we need to start thinking about our careers. Many of us, we're not really sure what we want to do. What does the world look like? One of the things I always try to help the students that I work with and the coaching clients that I have is trying to figure out what their authentic interests are and how those might translate into a career. You take advantage of your free time before your busyness, right? How are you spending, right? Students don't have that much free time, but how are they spending it? Are they scrolling endlessly through TikTok and just getting sucked into the social media vortex, or are they figuring out other useful ways to use their time? No, I'm not totally throwing shade at social media. I use it too. We all do, but we have to obviously find a balance there. And then finally, life before death. This is where our character comes in, where our Islam, where our Iman and our akhlaq are there. So we have 3 goals for today. So we're focusing on how focusing on barakah can revolutionize your approach to studying, how you can tap into barakah to cut your study time in half, and then how attracting barakah in your studies will allow you to stand out in the things that really matter. So again, in order to actually, go back to this one. This last one is really, really important. So one thing is that we're trying to figure out what barakah is and how do we get it in our study time. But the purpose of that is when we have barakah in our study time and we're able to do things much faster, we're able to accomplish more in less time. That actually opens up time in our schedule to do the things which really, really matter for our souls, and for things like college, right? Everyone who's applying to college or the top colleges has a pretty stellar academic record. So what's going to differentiate you is what you do with the other time. If you don't have good study skills, then in order to maintain those high grades, you're going to just have to spend all of your time on your studies. And so that's one of the main reasons why we want to get barakah in our time. So I tried to do some brainstorming about the greatest study challenges, and I put them into these different buckets. I want to, again, open up a poll just to see where your, has that been sharing the whole time? Sorry. Where your challenges are. So this poll should show up. So you could choose, I believe if I set it up properly, you can choose up to 3 different choices. So feel free to do that. But this will help with our discussion, and also it's amazing data for me to see. Actually, we're up to 141 people. I don't know if you guys can see the participants. I'm going to take a chance to look at the chat while we're here. Oh, nice. You can choose as many as you want. Yep, I saw a question about going back to the previous slide. So if Ruhina, if you're able to drop the link to the slides into the chat again, then that would be helpful for the people who have joined since then. So all of these slides themselves are available. I've already shared them with you, and there will be a follow-up. Sorry, this. Everything will. There will be a follow-up email. You can't talk to everyone in the chat. Maybe you could put it. Are you able to put it in the Q&A? That's so weird. The guest said that the last time. Okay. So I'm going to end this poll in 1 moment. We're up to 2/3 of you who have voted. Alhamdulillah. There we go. All right. So I'll share the results. So the largest two by far, almost tied, time management and procrastination, and then distractions and lack of focus. Okay, so this actually, I'm going to take a screenshot of this myself. All right. And let's see, motivation issues. That's another big one, but further down, test anxiety and stress management, and then ineffective study techniques, and then at the very bottom, a difficulty understanding material. But still, we're talking about 20% who are facing that challenge. Very, very interesting data, inshallah, and so time management and procrastination and distractions and lack of focus. Let's see, we can see whether you're feeling better about those by the end of this webinar today, inshallah. Yeah, in terms of the length of the webinar, we're aiming for 75 minutes. I apologize if it goes over in any way. What we're going to do for today is we're going to go through 5 different topics. We talked about the 5 Barakah secrets. These are those topics. And then just to be totally upfront, at the end, I'm going to be launching a new class where we're going to be teaching about these topics. So we're trying to give you as much great information as possible, but also hope that you might be interested in learning more about the class. So after we go through these 5 points, then that's what we're going to be doing. So what is Barakah and how to get it? How to manage your time to overcome procrastination through Barakah. That was the top one. How to attract Barakah in studying for tests and writing essays. How to manage academic stress through Barakah, and why Barakah in your studies is the key to really standing out. Okay, so first of all, what is Barakah? So Barakah is often defined as a divine blessing and so on. Imam Raghib al-Asfahani, he described it in a beautiful way. He said, Barakah is the attachment of divine blessings to a thing. So if it occurs in something little, it increases it. And if it occurs in something much, it benefits it. So what Barakah is something where, it makes a small amount of time, you can do an incredible amount in that small amount of time. If you have Barakah in your wealth, even though you're not getting paid very well, this is what I felt like at Islamic school for all these years. Even though I know that my salary is not the same as an executive salary, I felt like there was lots of barakah in the wealth because it was halal rizq and so on, and it went a very long way. This is in the treasures of Allah. So there's an amazing story which some of you may be familiar with about Abu Hurairah radiallahu an feeding the milk to Ahl al-Suffah. So just to keep it as brief as possible, Abu Hurairah, as you know, radiallahu an, was one of the most famous Sahaba. He related so many of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So one day he was extremely hungry, and he was standing out in the streets of Medina, and looking for people and giving them salams, but hoping that they would invite him to eat. And so he saw, I believe it was Abu Bakr radiallahu an, and then Omar radiallahu an, and each of them gave him salams, but they continued on their way. And then he saw the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ could tell that Abu Hurairah was so hungry, right? And their hunger is a much different level than ours. So he invited Abu Hurairah to his home, and he had some milk there. And then he asked Abu Hurairah, go and invite all the Ashab al-Suffah, right? All the people who live in the masjid, the indigent people who lived in the masjid, invite them here to drink of this milk. So in his heart, Abu Hurairah was thinking, subhanallah, this is a very small amount of milk. I'm so hungry, and now if all these other people come, then I'm not going to get any milk for myself, and so on. But he had faith in the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, "Sami'na wa ata'na," and so he went and brought the people. And then this miracle, happened where Abu Hurairah brought it to each of the Ashab al-Suffah, and each of them drank until they were full. They kept passing it along, and then finally at the end, Rasulullah ﷺ looked at him and said, "It's just you and me. It's just you and me left." And so Rasulullah ﷺ said, "Drink." So Abu Hurairah drank, and Rasulullah ﷺ said, "Drink again." And he drank again, and he drank until he couldn't drink anymore, and then he handed it to the Prophet ﷺ, who finished off the milk. So this is an amazing story. This is perhaps a miracle only for the Prophet ﷺ. Allah knows best, but this is an incredible example of barakah, right? So Muhammad Faris, who's one of my teachers, talked about the barakah equation, and I loved how he put this. So he wrote an amazing book called The Productive Muslim. I don't know, you guys can maybe give a thumbs up in the chat if anyone's familiar with this book or has read it. If you haven't, then I highly, highly recommend it. So his barakah equation for productivity in general, his equation is it equals energy times focus times time. Right? This is how with a key to productivity: energy times focus times time. But he adds this barakah coefficient to it, which supercharges this barakah equation. Right? When you have barakah in your energy, when you have barakah in your focus, and when you have barakah in your time, then what you can accomplish is off the charts. And I wanted to share just a quick experience of this myself. Last year in November, I decided that I wanted to teach my students how to write a college essay. I've been helping them for so many years, and I've been teaching about it, but I hadn't actually written a college essay of my own since I applied to college way back in 1996. So I sat down one day and I wrote a college essay. It was called New York Times Crossword in Ink. And for some reason, as I finished writing this essay, this idea came to me. I said, what if I challenge myself to write 30 college essays in 30 days? Now, on its face, this is a crazy thing to do. I was working full-time, I was teaching full-time, as guidance counselor. It was a very busy time in the cycle, but somehow this inspiration came to me. And so now, how do you write so much every day? Writing for me was a scary thing. Alhamdulillah, I've always been blessed to be a good writer. People have told me that, but I avoided writing at all costs because it was so cognitively challenging. So alhamdulillah, what I used to do is I would go and I would pray Fajr in the masjid, and then I would come home and I would set a timer for 41 minutes. Strange number. Inna Allaha witr yuhibbul witr. This is one of my favorite hadith. Allah is odd and He loves the odd things. So 41 minutes, and then I would handwrite by in my notebook, and I would just not allow myself to pick the pencil or pen up off the paper, and I would get a rough draft out. And mashallah, that breaking through and not editing while I went, opened up the floodgates. Then this was before the days of AI and things. I actually had my wonderful wife, who you met earlier, would actually type them up for me, and then right after school, I would spend another hour or so, usually an hour and a half. It took longer to edit them. And subhanAllah, over the course of the 30 days, I wrote close to 30,000 words. I actually have a copy of this book that I have here. And alhamdulillah, it's a really, I think, interesting. It's sort of my life story through the lens of college essays. And I could never have imagined that I would write 30 college essays a day in 40 minutes a day in the morning. But this is an example of barakah. So how do we get barakah in our lives? So the spiritual foundations of barakah. So obviously, first and foremost, we need to set our sincere intentions. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And we need to make our intention that when we're studying, we're not just studying to get a good grade. We're not just studying to get into a good college. We're not just studying, to please our parents, right? But we're studying for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're studying to use this brain and this body that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to seek His pleasure, to seek His Jannah, and we have to set these high intentions. We need to make dua, right? I asked Brother Sufyan, who's the headmaster of our school and is an Islamic scholar himself. He has this amazing ability to give khutbahs and things and quote texts without ever having any notes. And I said, what's the secret? How do you have so much barakah in your study time and your review time for khutbahs where you can do this? And he said, honestly, there's nothing special about me. The only thing I can tell you is that my mother used to make dua for me every single day for my memory, and that I learned this deen very well. And he said that has made all the difference. And he said that if you look at all the scholars, Imam Shafi'i and so many other scholars, it is the dua of the mother. So if we have mothers in this crowd today, the single best way to help get barakah in your child's study is for you to make dua. Not make dua for them to be a doctor or this thing. That's fine. You can do that as well. But make dua that Allah put barakah in their study time, that He give them the ilm from Him. We should pray our salah on time. We have to detach from the results. And then we also have to focus on the process, not the destination. Right, so we can't be constantly focused on the results, right? If we want Quranic evidence for this, we look at the story of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. So what did he say? قال ربي إني دعوت قومي ليلا ونهارا فلم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا. He said, my Lord, indeed I invited my people to truth night and day, but my invitation increased them not except in flight. Right? Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam was alive for 950 years, and only a small handful, less than 100 people accepted Islam with him, and yet he continued to make that effort. Right? He had barakah in his time, even though the results seemingly on the dunyawi terms were not there. Right? So this is something we should always keep in mind. And just this isn't the main focus of this, but plug for my teacher, Muhammad Faris, who I mentioned earlier. He has an amazing book that I'm so excited to get out. It's coming out later in January, called The Barakah Effect. I don't know if Ruhina, if you're able to grab links and drop them in the Q&A or the chat or wherever you're doing it. Otherwise, inshallah, if you have the link to the slides, then that would allow you to do that if you want to pre-order. But anyway, he's the master of this, and a lot of what I'm saying today I learned first from studying with him. So one of the common mistakes that students have is they rely too much on their motivation. Right? If you rely on motivation is not very strong, right? Because some days you have it and some days you don't. So if you rely just on your motivation, you'll look like this little stick figure in red, right? That it goes up and down, this zigzaggy type thing, but eventually your motivation runs dry, the well runs dry, and you give up. So what's much more powerful than motivation is habits. It's creating study habits and habits for the rest of our life, right? That we stick to no matter what. On the days we're feeling good, on the days we're not feeling as good, we have those study habits. We set that specific time aside. And so this is something to keep in mind. So now I wanted to start talking about the thing which you guys identified as your biggest challenge, right? How to overcome your time and how to manage your time and overcome procrastination. Okay, so this is a very big topic. So I wanted to start with some Islamic ideas, and then we'll talk about some other sort of Western science-backed ideas as well. So Rasulullah ﷺ made a very specific dua for he said, "Oh Allah, bless my ummah in what they do early in the day." And so Rasulullah ﷺ made dua for this time early in the day. And I know there may be some night owls out there who don't love this advice, But the single best thing you can do to achieve barakah in your study time is actually to use those mornings to your advantage. Right? Salat al-Fajr right now, depending on where you live, Fajr is quite late. Usually it's a little bit earlier. So you're up around 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. And you often, depending on what time your school starts, you have some time, right? Or you can even wake up for tahajjud even earlier than that and use that time. There's incredible barakah in that time. Weekend mornings is another thing, right? So many students, they're sleep deprived throughout the week because they don't have barakah in their study time. And so they just sleep until noon on the weekends and they miss out those incredible weekend mornings when you can do, so many interesting things. So taking advantage of your early mornings, one of the best pieces of advice from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the key is we need to get sleep, right? A lot of students, they achieve their grades through what I call like academic elbow grease. They're just grinding and grinding. They're staying up as late as they have to, right? Students at my school used to turn their assignments in at like 3:34 a.m., right? And then sure enough, the next day you see them and their head is down on the table, right? When you don't take care of your body and you don't get sufficient sleep, you're working at 30% capacity. In order for your brain to function and for you to have barakah in your study time, you need to get enough sleep, right? Sleep is the single greatest performance enhancing drug. So the best way to do this is to sleep shortly after Isha. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said, right? Maybe that's not realistic if Isha is very early in the day, but sleep as early as possible and wake up as early as possible, right? Now again, some people are night owls. There may be, you can adjust the schedule as you see fit, but the key is that you're getting sufficient sleep. Now, in terms of other strategies, so there are so many, and in the course that I'll be talking about later, we're going to teach many, many more than this, but here are just three. So one is called eat the frog. So what does eat the frog mean? So the frog is that thing that you're dreading, the most important thing you do, but the thing that you least want to do. And so one of the best ways to be productive in your study or in your work is to eat the frog. So the first thing you do when you sit down to study, or the first thing you do and when you wake up in the morning is eat that frog. The thing that you want to procrastinate on, it's probably the most important thing, and that's what you should do first. If you do that first, even if you don't accomplish anything else that whole day, then you will have had a very productive day, right? So eat the frog. The next one is the Pomodoro technique. This is a very popular thing. So Pomodoro means tomato in Italian, and so there was a type of kitchen timer that was shaped like a tomato. And the idea here is that you set the timer for a certain period of time. Typically, the recommendation is 25 minutes. Right? So you set a timer. If you don't need a kitchen timer, you can use your phone, although I'm going to tell you later not to have your phone near you, but somehow set a timer for 25 minutes. And what that does is that tells you for these 25 minutes, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to zone in and I'm going to focus and I'm just going to do that one thing for those 25 minutes, right? And you know that the buzzer is going to go off and you're going to get a break. When you get that break after 25 minutes, right, then you take a break and do something totally different. So don't go from working and using your brain to scrolling on social media. Go and talk to someone in your family, get a little bit of exercise, do some jumping jacks, do something different, right? That from what you've been doing, and then come back and do another 25 minutes, right? They say after 4 Pomodoros, then you should take a longer break of at least half an hour, right? And so on. If you implement this, you can get an incredible amount of done, right? And then time boxing, right? Time boxing or time blocking is another way of talking about it, is setting a particular amount of time for you to accomplish an assignment, right? So if you have your calculus homework, right? And oftentimes your calculus homework is taking you 2 hours to do. You tell yourself, I have 1 hour to complete this calculus assignment. I have 2 Pomodoros to complete this calculus assignment, right? And then you sit down and you force yourself that you're not going to be able to work on it after that point. And so you set that deadline, and then you say that. So it's about planning out your time. So I have this really cool thing I just got on Amazon. I don't know if you can see it. It's just this daily planner. So over here you do like a brain dump in the morning. You get all the things that you have to do out of your head, right? This is one of the best ways to free up your brain to work better. Then you prioritize them. You write the top 5 things here, and then you block out your scheduled. Right? So you'll already have, if you're a student, a lot of time will be for class and school and commuting and so on. But for those free periods, you actually block it out ahead of time, right? So you make a plan ahead of time. You don't just study in this haphazard fashion, right? You need to know exactly what you need to accomplish, and then you need to make a plan, and you need to set time boxes for that amount of time. So these are some of the really high impact time management strategies. Another concept is to leverage the inverse of Parkinson's law. So that sounds very mathy and confusing, but I'll try to explain it so it makes sense. So Parkinson's law is this observation that work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. Right? So in other words, if you give yourself 8 hours to complete a task, then it is going to take you 8 hours to complete that task. Right? It's not like this is just the way the human works, right? So whereas if you give yourself 3 hours, you'll get the same thing done in 3 hours. You give yourself 2 hours, right? So one of the reasons that people procrastinate is because they are trying to get to the point where they have a deadline where they don't have any choice except to work. When I was writing essays in college, I did this, and I'm not recommending this, but I'm telling you that I'm a recovering procrastination addict myself, right? I would wait until the night before the essay was due. If it was 10 pages or less, I would wait until the night before the essay was due. And then around midnight, the deadline pressure of getting that essay done was so high that I would sit down and I'd write it in one draft, right? This is probably one of the reasons why I have PTSD around writing, and why it took me, 30 more years to start writing a lot on my own, because of the way I used to structure things, right? So one of the best ways to get barakah in your time is actually to have less time, right? It's a paradox, right? When you have less time, it forces you to have more barakah in your time, right? There's a famous saying: if you want something done, then you should ask a busy person to do it. Right? You'd think that the busy person wouldn't be able to do it, but I've always found that my students who are amazing and they're doing all sorts of different things, those are the ones that are actually reliable. And the student who's very free and doesn't have a lot on their plate, right? Those are the ones who, things fall through the crack. So paradoxically, actually, getting busy with a bunch of hobbies and sports and Quran recitation and memorization and just having a lot of other things forces you to spend your time really wisely. The cognitive cost of task switching. Right, so people talk a lot about multitasking, right? And they try to do many, many different things at once. One of the biggest ways to get barakah in your time, right, is that focus, is to just do one thing at a time, right? Cal Newport, he wrote, doing more than one thing at a time is a guarantee of mediocrity. Doing more than one thing at a time is a guarantee of mediocrity, right? So you need to, during those Pomodoros, if that's the method that you use, you only work on one thing, right? Ideally, you only have one tab open on your computer, right? As soon as you get distracted by something else, it takes such a long time to get back into that zone, right? So that's one of the main things. And we're going to talk about study environment and other things like that, and learn how to batch, right? Which means, like, social media might be something you want to keep up with your friends. Okay, so that's fine. Build that into your schedule. I'm going to have half an hour here to do things on social media. If you have a lot of email that you have to get through, right? Set aside a particular time to do your email. But don't constantly, every time a Discord notification comes in, look over at that. Every time a new email comes, look at it, respond to it. You'll never get anything done that way, right? So focus on doing one thing at a time. So how do we attract barakah in studying for tests? Right? So some of these things are Islamic guidelines, right? And things that you probably don't think about, even though, when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, of course that makes sense. One thing is to study in a state of wudu, right? Oftentimes we notice that there's a lot of barakah if we've memorized a lot of Quran. One of those reasons is our intention is sincere and we're in a state of wudu. So we should try our best to study in a state of wudu. We should make 2 rakats, salat al-hajah, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially when we have a big test coming up, right? Asking for there to be barakah in our time. There's nothing more powerful than dua, and this is the way to do it. Some people have gone as far as to have their desk face qibla, right? This isn't like a sunnah or anything like that, but there is lots of barakah in facing qibla, and again, it keeps your intention proper. Importance of where you study, right? So I tried to find some examples of really places that I would love to go to study myself, right? So you see this really cool room and study nook that they've set up. Down here you have an example of 2 different desks, right? The one on the right looks like a total jumble. It would not be a good place to study. That it's just very confusing and so on. And here they cleaned it up and it's much better. Still, I would say it's not perfect. There's still quite a lot of chaos going on there. But that's fairly realistic. When I was at Harvard, right, one of the ways that I got the most barakah in my time was to not study in my dorm room. Right, the dorm room was for fun and for play and that sort of thing. But when I had to work and when I had a lot of work, I would go to the library. And mashallah, Harvard has, I don't know, something like 20 plus libraries, and each of them has a different personality. Right, so one of the undergraduate library is called Lamont. That's the one in the middle on the bottom. Right, that's where you go sort of if you had assignments that weren't too stressful. It's somewhat more of a social place. You'll see a lot of your friends and so on. Then there was the law school library. That's down in the bottom right. That's where I would go when I had something serious to do. I wanted to be around really hardcore or law students and so on. This was in my dorm, mashallah. It's called Elliott House. They had this amazing little library that almost no one knows about. So when I wanted real peace and quiet, that's the other one on the bottom left, right? The most isolated places in the giant library at Harvard, the Widener stacks, it's just stacks and stacks of books, and they have these little tiny study cubicles in there. And so if you really want to isolate yourself, that was where you go. And then this is a newer building that they've built at Harvard that wasn't there when I was there, but you see it's much more airy and so on. So choose your space wisely, and the main thing is to have a particular place in your house. When you go into that place, that's your work zone. Right? So don't don't just do your work wherever you happen to be in the house. Try to carve out a space where you can work, and if possible, try to take yourself out of your house and go to a library or some other place like that. Digital distractions are huge, right? So the most obvious, easiest thing to do is just to not have your phone in your study space, right? This is one of the biggest recommendations. If for some reason you have to have it there, or the other simple thing to do is to go on airplane mode. Right? Airplane mode, I think, is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? We do not when I was growing up and when most of the parents here were growing up, cell phones were not a thing, right? You don't need to be accessible 24 hours a day. You can leave people on red for a little bit of time and the world is going to continue spinning, right? The notifications, like the algorithms that these people come up with in Silicon Valley are so powerful. You can't really fight against it. You need to just say no, quit cold turkey while you're trying to study. So flip on airplane mode. Then the question is, okay, I'm working on my laptop though, and I'm still getting notifications and I can go to other browsers and so on. So one of the things that you can do is you can download something like the Stay Focused Chrome extension, right? And that actually locks you in. You can set the amount of time that you want to do it where you can't open any other tabs, right? I'm sure there's a way to circumvent it, but this is a way to put a guardrail up for yourself, knowing how weak we are, that even though we say we're going to do this, that the allure or the desire to look something up, right? And this comes up when you're writing too. You might want to consult, look up what a word means, or now there's ChatGPT. People are going over and typing things in. When you just lock your browser down to the only things that you need at that moment, that forces you to study and use those Pomodoros really well. In terms of how do you work on your memory and the actual ways to study, there's a huge difference between your short-term memory, right, and your long-term memory. So this chart sort of talks about it. So you get some sort of stimulus, right? The teacher is explaining the Krebs cycle in biology, right? It comes in, and at first it's in your short-term memory. They're calling it sensory memory, right? If you're not paying attention, that goes immediately down to the trash. My wife can tell you, since she's here, a lot of times she has a conversation with me, and the next day I have no recollection of it because I was zoned into one thing and I didn't hear it at all. It went straight into the trash. If you focus and you're trying to memorize, then that thing can move from the working memory, from the short-term memory into your working memory, right? This is the working memory. It is not nearly as powerful as the long-term memory. It's sort of like the RAM. You have very limited RAM, right? You can memorize things. So what many people do when they're studying is they're memorizers. They're not learners, right? They're not focusing on understanding. They're focusing on just memorizing material, and they pack it into their short-term memory or into their working memory. The next day they regurgitate it on the paper, and a week later they don't have any idea what they were talking about. So when the final exam comes, or when the next class comes that requires you to build on that knowledge, they just don't have it, right? The best way is to get it into your long-term memory, right? Through rehearsal and encoding. So how do you do that? One of the things that I didn't know about when I was a student that I wish I had, is spaced repetition. There are lots and lots of science papers on this, but this is one of the best ways to learn and retain information, right? So this chart sort of shows you how it all works. So you learn something, and then you start forgetting it. This is the forgetting curve, right? So if you use spaced repetition, this would be something in the old days, like where you create note cards, and then the next day you look back at that note card, right? You look at that note card, and and then you continue to do that. Now they have technology, right? A lot of people use Quizlet, which I've used for many years as well, as an online note card thing. Anki, can we get some thumbs up if anyone uses Anki? I don't know how popular it is, or how well people know it. It's an amazing app that actually, and this is what all medical students and the people who have to get through enormous amounts of information use. It uses the spaced repetition, so it keeps bringing that information back day after day, right? And seeing whether you understood it, and using the back end to keep testing you on the things that you keep getting wrong, right? And that spaced repetition, what it does is it flattens out the forgetting curve, right? You start to actually remember, and you start to transfer something from your short-term memory, from your working memory, into your long-term memory, right? This is much, much more effective than just rereading material. It's 1,000 times more effective than just memorizing things, this spaced repetition. And then the last thing, the best way to learn something is to try to teach it to others, right? When you teach other people, that shows whether you understand the thing yourself. Alhamdulillah, those are some of the things. Okay, AI. I don't know about you, but this AI is a very exciting topic. It's something I love. I love talking about. I think when AI first came out, teachers and everyone was freaking out. Were freaking out about it, thinking like the sky is falling and so on. At this point, wherever you stand on this, if you do not learn how to use these tools, you're going to be left behind in the future workforce, right? People are going to be using AI. They're already using AI, and the pace of it is going to accelerate so much more. But obviously, we're talking about Barakah. How can you have Barakah in ChatGPT? Isn't that what people use to cheat, right? Obviously, there are unethical things which would push Barakah away that you can do with these AI things. When you ask it to write your essay for you, for example, then that's obviously not something that would be beneficial. However, you can and need to learn how to prompt ChatGPT or any of these other Bard or all the other AIs that are out there, right? You need to learn how to ask them good prompts. And there's a cheat sheet there that I'm not going to go through, but again, you guys have access to these slides. Other prompts that can be really helpful that I found for students: explain photosynthesis as if I were a fifth grader. Okay, so this as if I were a fifth grader question, right? It's amazing. It takes really complicated topics and it breaks them down in a way that you can understand them and then rebuild up to the more sophisticated understanding of it. It's an incredible tool. You can ask it to give you, to make mnemonics, right? If someone's obsessed with Taylor Swift, let's say, you can ask it to, attach the photosynthesis to Taylor Swift lyrics for better memorization. I know some of you might not listen to music and so on, but I'm just trying to give an example for the students out there, right? You can do amazing things if you just are creative with your prompts, right? When you're writing, rather than saying, write this essay for me, you can write an essay and then assess the strengths of this and the weaknesses of this essay and indicate any sections that are unclear, right? That's an amazing prompt. And I'm going to create a list of ChatGPT prompts for students that will go into much more depth than this. But this is an incredible thing. You can ask it, if I could only keep 20% of this essay, what would it be? What if I had to cut 20%? These are questions that I ask. I spend a lot of time every Friday writing my 5 before 5 Substack. If someone can put it in the chat, that would be really helpful. I don't know if it's been there before, but I spend 5+ hours every single Friday writing this. At the end of that big process, I drop the whole 2,000 word, 1,500 word thing into ChatGPT and start asking these sorts of questions. Yeah, if you're on and you haven't subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe. I put a lot of effort into that stuff. Then another amazing one is called Khanmigo. Has anyone used Khanmigo? Can you give us some thumbs up if you've used Khanmigo or you know about it? This is the AI that was created by Khan Academy, right? It looks like not too many thumbs up are coming. So this is an amazing one, and especially if parents are reluctant, to let, or kids don't trust themselves with something like ChatGPT. What Khanmigo has done is it won't just give you the answer, right? Here's an example. Can you just tell me the answer? And it will tell you it's important that you learn how to do this yourself. What do you think you need to do to multiply 2 by 5.5? And then you give your thought, right? So what Khan Academy is doing is they're trying to give a personal tutor to every single student in the world and every single teacher, incidentally. It's an amazing tool for teachers as well. You can do Khanmigo to, you can set it so it becomes William Shakespeare, and then you can have a conversation with Shakespeare. It's just amazing stuff. The things which you can do with AI these days are just incredible. And I think Khanmigo is one of the most sophisticated uses that students can do. It does have a cost. I think it's $4 a month. But I think it's it's definitely worth it. It's one of the best tools, to have this sort of personal tutor that's going to get to know you and so on. Okay. Learning how to manage academic stress. So first of all, we need to stop. The most important thing when we are feeling super stressed out about a test or something else, it's because we think that we are in control. Right? We have to stop relying on ourselves. Well, what is this deen founded upon? La ilaha illallah. Right? There is no God except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to negate ourselves. We are not in control, right? It seems like we are. It seems like we're the ones studying, and if we study hard, we do well. But that's not the reality. We have to stop this reliance on ourselves. If we have barakah in our time, if we've done all these things, if we've made wudu, etc., we do your best and then surrender the rest. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of this in the Quran when He says, أَفَرَأَيْتُم مَا تَحْرُثُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ تَزْرَعُونَهُ أَمْ نَحْنُ زَارِعُونَ. Have you seen that which that seed which you sow? Have you seen the seeds that you plant? Is it you who makes it grow, or are we the growers? Right? We can just do our work. We plant the seeds. We study the material, right? We take our notes during lectures. We do all of that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to make that knowledge grow. And once we get out of that mindset that I'm in control, that I have to do this, it takes so much pressure off of us, right? And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge. Mindset shifts, right? The only worthwhile comparison is to your yesterday. A lot of students, they fall into the trap comparing themselves to others. They get a 95 on their test, but the girl sitting next to me, she got 100, and then they feel bad about themselves and they feel like a failure and so on. There's no, we should have to get out of this trap of comparing ourselves to other people. We should only compare ourselves with where we were yesterday. If we're constantly getting a little bit better, then the sky's the limit. Barakah will rain down, right? We need to, similarly, curiosity replaces envy. Okay, so the next time you feel envious of someone, you want something that they have, or you're like, I wish I could be that way, right? You should ask yourself, what did this person do to achieve this thing? So if they're getting good grades, what is their secret? Maybe ask them, what are your barakah secrets? How do you achieve what you do? If you know, or something else like this. So instead of being envious when you see someone that has something that you want, ask them questions and let that curiosity replace the envy. Also, chunking. So chunking is breaking big tasks into smaller things. So a lot of times when we're procrastinating, it's because we're like the guy in that first picture, right? We're looking at this huge task and that first step feels completely unmanageable, right? We have to write a 20-page research paper, right? That's just, I can't even handle that. So you need to break it down into smaller steps, right? Just like the guy in the bottom did, you make those smaller steps and that allows you to do the whole thing, right? And then the other thing is the power of not yet, right? The power of not yet. So rather than saying things like I can't do it, you say I can't do it yet, right? That little change, that tiny little change in mindset makes a tremendous difference. The other day, we went skating. I took my family skating, and my nephew is staying with us. And he'd never been ice skating before. And we went out to skate, and he fell probably 50 times in 1 hour, but he kept on getting up and he had the biggest smile on his face. And afterwards he said it was the most fun he had the whole vacation, right? Other people, they can't handle that. They don't want to fall, right? As soon as they don't know how to do something, they stand on the ice, they feel unstable, they won't do it. I can guarantee you that someone like that is going to be an amazing skater if they just stick with it, right? The power of not yet. And this is, I think, the last major thing I'm talking about. Muslim parents and the burden of perfection, right? One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Don't let striving for perfection, for getting that perfect score, prevent you from doing anything, paralyze you, the paralysis of perfection, right? We have to adopt this Gardner mindset, which I'll talk about another time. A lot of times what parents do is they put a lot of stress on their children, right? I don't know if the kids are here. If you feel comfortable, you can put thumbs up if you feel stress coming from your parents. But when you get upset, when you raise your voice, yelling silences the message, right? Speak quietly so that children can hear your words instead of just your voice, right? This is one of the best things. Make dua for your children and try not to be on their case so much. This is an amazing poem. Do not ask your children to strive. Do not ask your children to strive for extraordinary lives. Such striving may seem admirable, but it is the way of foolishness. Help them instead to find the wonder and the marvel of an ordinary life. Show them the joy of tasting tomatoes, apples, and pears. Show them how to cry when pets and people die. Show them the infinite pleasure in the touch of a hand, and make the ordinary come alive for them. The extraordinary will take care of itself. Right? So this is an incredible reframing, right? We want the best for our children. in this world and the next, try not to be so focused on the outcome. My child has to go to such and such college. My child has to get 100, right? Focus on the process, right? And we want our children to be God-centric, Allah-centric people who will succeed eternally. And oftentimes when we don't put that pressure on them and it comes from within them, that's when the real benefit comes. So, the last point, why Barakah in your studies is the key to really standing out, why straight A's aren't always the ticket to success in school or in life. I had previewed this earlier. We have a special guest, Omar Hamoda, on the call with us. Omar, if you're able to come back on camera. We're just going to spend a couple minutes with Omar, and then I do want to tell you about the class that we put together. So if Omar is there, are you able to turn there? Yes, mashallah. Let me just stop sharing for a moment and just so we can see Omar fully. MashaAllah. So as I said earlier, Omar is a little bit modest, mashallah. He told us that he was a senior at Milton. The exciting news is Hamzah, he was just recently, just a couple of weeks ago, he was accepted early into Harvard, into my alma mater. So we're very proud of him. Mashallah, mabruk, alf mabruk. So he had attended some of the webinars that I've been doing throughout the year. And mashallah, he told me he got some benefit from it. And I just wanted to let him come in and just give a few words of wisdom about how he's achieved barakah in his time and anything else that he can say in a short period of time. So, Bismillah, Omar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Henshaw, for the introduction. I think
Brother.
I'm very flattered that you have asked me to be here. I'm usually the one, like as you said, who's in these Zooms trying to scrape down notes on anything and everything. And even actually this entire time I have a page and a half full right now of just all the great things that we've gone over in the slideshow. I'll definitely be using those tips, inshallah. I wish I remembered the Krebs cycle. I wish I had those tips when I was learning it. But inshallah next time. In terms of some of the things you asked me, I think probably the best format for this would be like if when people have specific questions, please send them my way. This will help me like give you guys the most effective answers for what you're looking for. And I will say it feels weird to me being in the position where I'm giving the answers because I don't have the answers, but I do know like what has worked for me, alhamdulillah, and that's come through so much trial of error, so many late nights studying, so many tears. But alhamdulillah, I think that has helped me a lot, and it has given me some experience on like what works, what to skip. Inshallah, I'll take a look at the start. I have one question.
So I think we can have questions at the end so people can put those in the Q&A, and if you're able to, you can stick around and we can do that at the end. But just we had talked a little bit. Could you talk a little bit about sort of your study? Where did you do your studies? How did you arrange your time?
So I had phases. I will say, like, when I was an 8th grader, I'll go year by year. When I was an 8th grader, I used to study in a very bad way. I used to basically like be laid down, just staring directly at the laptop. This did not work. Please skip this phase, inshallah. Next year I upgraded to a desk, alhamdulillah. But this desk was also in my room. So this basically, it constantly tempted me whenever I would get a dip in my motivation. Then I would lose that discipline. And this goes back to the point that you were saying about how discipline is much more important than motivation, because basically at these low moments, I would lose my flow state in my work. So I would say that that if you want to study effectively, you should put yourself in the position where you are going to be studying effectively, where you're going to be in a flow state. And the best metaphor that I heard, and I know I've already told you this, but for everyone else, the best metaphor that I've heard is that in basketball, if you guys are familiar with basketball, you always have certain spots on the court where you're a better shooter compared to others. And so what I'm constantly thinking about is how can I put myself in the position where I'm going to be most effective? Like how can I get to the spots on court where I'm going to put the most effective shots up? So always try to get to your spots. In this case, physically, a physical spot. I'm not around it now, but it's right around the corner. It's actually outside. This is something that has worked for me usually in the better weather seasons, but I find that I'm much more effective when I can smell nature. And of course I keep myself surrounded with things that will keep me focused. So I have a laptop stand for good posture. I keep a too big water bottle next to me, so I have no excuse to get up. I have some snacks. I have what else? Notebook, headphones, everything that and this varies like from person to person, but everything that you would need and anything that would keep you from being distracted. So from getting up, I have also, because I'm like, I love to keep active. I don't prefer sitting down for extended periods of time. So I find that when I get distracted, like sometimes when I'm feeling very motivated, I'll get up and just crank out some push-ups. But usually I would just jump some jump rope. I keep that with me, or dribble basketball for a little bit. And this will work well with the Pomodoro technique. That has been very effective for me because in those 5 minutes, whatever you feel will help you recharge for the other 25 will always be the most effective.
MashaAllah, that's great. So unfortunately we said this would only be 75 minutes and we're getting close to that time. So I have Omar has a lot more to teach. I learned a lot. I talked to him earlier this week, and mashallah, I learned so much. So I've actually invited him back next Thursday, and I'm going to invite a panel of students, 2 or 3 students who are going to share their perspective, right? So if you're interested in learning more from Omar, you can ask questions at the end of this, but also next week we'll have sort of more of a panel discussion. So inshallah, if people are interested in that, and I will, when I send the webinar recording and so on, I will include that as well. So thank you so much, Omar, and there's a lot more where that came from, and inshallah, hopefully we'll get some questions in the Q&A. Please, I see some people putting questions in the chat. I haven't been looking at the chat that much, but remember, questions go in the Q&A, and sort of comments and things can go into the chat. So Jazakallah khair, Omar. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
Sorry, quick question. So
yep.
So you said there will be time at the end for me to answer some of these questions that are coming in, inshallah.
Yep. So things that you can answer by text, you can do like that, but things would be better to answer on screen. And again, that's only if you have the time. I know you, mashallah.
Okay. No, I'd be happy.
You're also very busy, I'm sure. Okay. So at this point, I just wanted, I mentioned this before. I hate going to webinars where people just talk about something and they don't mention that there is a product or something like that they're going to talk about. So I want to have permission to talk about 10 minutes to talk about an exciting class on these same topics. And please stay tuned till the end because I'll explain a special offer that's just for you guys who are attending this webinar live. So I'm going to be offering something called the 5 Before College Barakah Boosted Study Skills class. So this is a really exciting class. I've been working on this for the last 3-4 months, doing lots and lots of research and putting these things together. So the goal is to win back your time and get barakah in your time. So they're going to be weekly classes, blending Islamic guidance and top study techniques. It's going to be a 6-week class starting 2 weeks from today, so January 17th. They're going to meet on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. They're going to be 90 minutes long. So I think we skipped the week of President's Day, that vacation week. But anyway, 6 weeks. It is really highly encouraged to attend live if at all possible, because that's when you get the most benefit. But of course, everything will be recorded as well. Depending on which tier of the thing you get, you can get individual feedback and even meetings with the instructors. I'm going to be teaching it. I'll be the sort of lead teacher, but also my wife Ruhina, who we met in the beginning, has been developing the course with me, and she's going to co-teach it with me. She's an amazing teacher. Been a teacher for even longer than I have, I believe, and she's been homeschooling our children, for many years as well, and she's incredibly strong in these things. So we don't need to worry about the link for it quite yet. I'll give that to you later. So this is how the course is going to look. So in the beginning, weeks 1 and 2, we're going to be doing the course introduction, of course. The very first week, inshallah, we're going to have a very, very exciting speaker. I don't want to reveal the details yet, but inshallah, for that very first week, we're going to have a great speaker. And essentially, we're going to just sort of lay out some of the foundational ideas of Barakah. Right, and then we're going to do sort of an audit of our own time and see where you're at to see where we can go from there. Then we're going to look at time management and study methods. So we're going to go into much more depth. We just sort of scratched the surface today with things like Pomodoro and other things like that. We'll go into much more depth. And the goal of this all is to give you actionable strategies, right? Not just theory. Theory is important, but you want something to actually take away and change. Hopefully this webinar has given you some of those things that you can actually implement. If you want even more of those things from both an Islamic perspective and the sort of scientific perspective, then this is what we're going to do. And then we'll have units on the stress and anxiety. And then the whole last week will be about technology, especially AI, but other forms of technology that we can use to get barakah in our life. All of this is available elsewhere, so I know I'm going through it a little bit quickly. So who is this masterclass for? So it's for ambitious students, right? From middle school all the way through graduate school, right? I suspect most students will be in the middle and high school range, but there's no reason they have to be. College students could absolutely benefit from this class as well. Students who are seeking success in both this world and the next. Of course, our classes are always open to everyone, regardless of their faith background and so on, but this is very much a akhirah-centered discussion that we'll be having, because that's where we believe the ultimate success happens. So if you're an academic perfectionist who's always sacrificing their mental health and their sleep in pursuit of grades, then this class would be great for you. If you're a perpetual procrastinator who takes forever to sit down and get down to work, then this is perfect for you. If you suffer from major test anxiety, right, you get overwhelmed by that, or if you're constantly getting distracted digitally, then all of those people, that's who this class is designed for. So if you see yourself in that, then it might be something to consider. There are 3 different ways to take this class. There's do it yourself, do it together, and do it one-on-one. Right? So do it yourself, what that means is what you get access to is the 6 weekly cohort-based live classes. So you can imagine what you got in one 60, 75-minute period, and now you're getting 6 of those, and so on. We also have a WhatsApp community that will be created just for this class, which will give you access to people like Omar and other students. I've noticed that, mashallah, this class and the material that I put out there, it attracts an amazing type of student. I can't tell you how blown away I am by my coaching students, my coaching clients. They're just incredible people that there's so much to learn from, and so I want you to learn from each other. If you want to do it together, right? You want some extra help, then you get an accountability partner. So we assign you someone else from the cohort who you're going to keep yourselves on track with making sure the course gets done. And then the assignments which we'll give, you will actually turn in those assignments and get some feedback from either myself or Sister Ruhina about your things. And then if you want to do it one-on-one, right, then what that means is you have a weekly a 30-minute one-on-one meeting with again either me or Sister Hina, depending on scheduling. And in addition, you get one 60-minute session to talk about, well, you can talk about whatever you want, but what I think you should be thinking about right now is your summer internships, how you're going to plan this next summer to be really productive. We can look at those things and try to get you launched into something like that. So again, just for the visual learners among us, this is what the different tiers consist of, right? So Do It Together has, everything of the first one plus the feedback and the accountability partner, and then Do It One-on-One. The additional things are, it should say 6 because there's a 6-week class, and then the summer internship session. Of course, that we always want to add, right? We want to give you more than this. So we also came up with some bonuses. So the bonus that you'll get if you sign up for the class, you'll get the top 5 ChatGPT prompts for studying. So these I haven't actually made that yet, but I'm going to put a lot of effort into trying to create some really, really helpful prompts and sort of a way for you to really leverage that power. You have lifetime access to the recordings of the class and all of the class material, all these slide decks, etc. If you Do It Together, then you get a bonus of one 30-minute session, right? The Do It One-on-One gets a whole bunch of those, but you do get one of those to meet and so on. And then also every week we're going to have office hours where you can come ask any sort of question that you have, and depends on how many people are there, how we use that, but that's just a sort of free access and so on, live access. Do It One-on-One, we decided to do something a little different for this one. I want to do a bundle of 3 books. Actually, as we were talking, I decided to make a change here. I want one of rather than giving you 2 books by the same author, Cal Newport, who's an amazing guy, I will give you, instead of the How to Be a High School Superstar, I'm going to do the Productive Muslim, right? So the Productive Muslim, How to Become a Straight A Student, and a great book called The Messenger, Our Teacher, which is about the teaching style of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? So I know you could buy these books on your own, but there's something special about getting a bundle in the mail, sent from someone. So if people do this the one-on-one, then that's the special bonus. So what's the investment? That's what everyone's going to ask. This is the question that people have probably been asking. So for the Do It Yourself, you can see the prices there. Do It Yourself, Do It Together, and Do It One-on-One. The special bonus that you get for being here at the webinar is the first 25 people who sign up, they get $100 off of these prices. So it would be $347, $497, and $997. And you unlock that by typing webinar 100 at checkout. You don't need to remember all this in your short-term memory. It will be sent to you, and you'll have another slide coming up. Right, so these are the prices. Obviously, pricing is a challenging thing to figure out. I think you're getting way more value than is being charged here. And the other thing is, when you invest in yourself, you're going to take the class much more seriously. If I offered this class for totally free and so on, people don't show up to free classes, right? But when they've put a lot of effort and they put a lot of into it, then they put a lot more effort into getting the full benefit, and it actually helps people benefit the most. However, I know that finances are very tight for some people, right? And so for all of our 5 before college programming, we have a pay what you can policy. So we never want finances to prevent you from beneficial knowledge. So if you'd like to get a pay what you can, this applies to the do-it-yourself tier, just to be clear. But if you have any reason, right, that you can't, all you have to do is send me an email, hamza@5b4college.com, and just sort of explain your circumstances and suggest what you're able to pay for it, and inshallah no one is turned away. So that's something that I really want to do. This is very valuable stuff. I want to set the prices, but I also don't want to prevent you from being able to come to it for financial reasons. But there's more. There's a special extra webinar only bonus, right? So this one does expire 2 days from now. So if you sign up, right now during the webinar or anytime over the next 2 days, then I'm going to offer you something which doesn't actually exist. That 30 college essays in 30 days. There are currently 2 copies of this, which I printed. I'm going to do a special print run for anyone who signs up for any of the tiers. And send this to you by snail mail, old-fashioned style, and that way you can have a physical copy. They are accessible on the web, and you can look at it. But there's something really special about having a book. It's the first book I've ever written, and it's hopefully it's an exciting little bonus. If you're still not sure, then I will drop in the link for this. It looks like it's not there. I'm not sure. If you're still not sure, then you can do that. Sorry, I messed my slideshow up. If you're not sure which tier works for you or whether this makes sense for you, I am going to share a link. It's a short application for you which will unlock sort of a 15-minute session for you to be able to ask questions. And that's just my contact information. So here's the page. This is the way to sign up. Let me copy this. Put it in the chat. So that is the way to sign up. Sorry, we'll come back in a second. If you have your smartphone or a separate phone, you can obviously use the QR code. Otherwise, I put the link in the chat. So just remember the first 25 people. When you're checking out, it says coupon code, and then you click on that, and then you put the coupon code of webinar 100. And of course, remember, if you're doing the pay what you can thing, you just send me an email, and that will you can suggest the price that you have. And I think, yeah, here's the link for the 15-minute session. Let me just grab that copy. So that second one, if you want to schedule a free 15-minute session with either me or Sister Ruhina to see whether the class makes sense and which tier makes the most sense for you, you can do that. And again, I know this is a lot to remember. I'm talking a lot about short-term memory. All of this will be emailed to you tomorrow as soon as I can get this presentation, this webinar up onto YouTube and so on. I will share it all out with everyone who registered, including the people who weren't here. Hamza, we were up to like 160 at the height. So I think that's just about it. I'm just going to leave this up there, but we can switch over to the Q&A. If you have questions about any of the material that we did, if you have questions about this class, then please drop them into the Q&A. If you have questions for Omar as well, please ask him to drop those questions in, indicate that. And yeah. Okay, I'm going to open the Q&A. So let's see. Specific question for Omar. If you were to summarize the secret to getting into Harvard in one main aspect, what would you consider?
Well, mashallah, this is an amazing and very difficult question, because I will say the answer, it could never be encompassed into one thing, but I would say I could give an idea. I could give you an idea. So the way that I approach this is that, inshallah, of course, because of the Islamic piece of 5 before college, which I think is extremely valuable because it puts things into perspective. At the end of the day, if you end up at a school like Harvard, of course you understand it's because of your hard work, but you understand more that it's because of the barakah that Allah has given you in your hard work. So I would say the first step, the baseline for approaching such a seemingly impossible task like getting accepted into an amazing university, is to renew your intentions, is to establish discipline with your deen, because discipline with your deen, wallahi, it manifests in everything you pursue in your life. And if you understand, like, one of the big things that my grandma instilled in me, is that inshallah I could be an example of a successful Muslim. Of course, this has made me like very motivated to make her proud in that manner. But more important than that, she says it's very important for me to be shab nasha fi ra'ayatillah, which basically means to be a youthful person, a young person who was raised with the Islamic values and the principles that guide them, inshallah, to excellence. But excellence cannot be achieved without those. So that will be the first step. I understand that that might not be the answer you were looking for, so I'll give you more of probably what you were hoping to hear. So once you have established your niyyah, you understand that excellence looks very different. Excellence manifests in very different ways. And the best way that you can make yourself seem and to truly be an exceptional applicant is to be excellent in many different ways. Because I'll tell you one thing, to be excellent in your academics, it's been done. It's been done too many times. There's always someone who sits at their desks, who can stay up till the latest hour, who is using all the tools before you, and that person might end up excelling more academically than you will. It's just a fact, of course. So what I would say to this point is that being excellent academically is, this might sound disappointing, but it is the baseline. This is something that you must start with. You must لازم تتقن your performance. You have to perfect your performance academically to be considered. But this is not everything. You can show your excellence in many different ways. So if you find that you're sacrificing parts of your deen, you're missing prayers to just constantly to take 13 AP classes, then it might be worth scaling it back and going back to the basics, going back to the things that will make you stand out as an applicant. Will you stand out with 13 APs? Maybe a bit more than the guy with 9, but you won't stand out as much as the guy who might take 6, but who is working on an amazing project, a nonprofit. Many people start nonprofits and find that it's so much easier to start something like this if you are willing to take that first step and to start, because always the first step is the hardest. And this applies academically, it applies in sports. So what has worked for me is to, and this is a long-winded answer, so I'll wrap it up here, is to be excellent in many different ways, is to be invested in many different things, such as sports, academics, extracurriculars, nonprofits, some type of greater project that encompasses your purpose as an applicant, something that you'll work on whether you get accepted into Harvard or anywhere, something that the school knows is true to you, and something that it will use to help you become a productive member of wherever you end up. So don't limit yourself to APs. Don't limit yourself to just sports. Do everything and anything. And this will just give you so many things to talk about in your essays. It'll show you just how amazing and excellent you can be by taking care of your time, but by more importantly, by having barakah in your time and by achieving a greater Islamic purpose through your academics and through whatever you're involved in. So apologies for the long answer.
Jazakallah khair, mashallah. I just wanted to go through, I saw there were some answered questions. I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw those. So just very, very briefly, I think everyone's seen these. The essays, if you want access to those essays, which I say you can get the copy of, then I posted that in the chat. That's on my personal website. Omar has a really great answer. If you have less time, won't you rush and mess it up? He said, I see why you would think that. From my personal experience, when I allocated shorter time periods for my work, this would not serve to rush me, but instead to keep me on track. The reason why this worked is exactly because of the Parkinson's law. Your efficiency over time has diminishing returns, meaning that as you burn out, you can't spend 3 hours on a 1-hour task. For this reason, short periods of focused work, right? So, mashallah, I think, even without prompting, when I was speaking with Omar, he had mentioned this, like the best way for him to get so much done was to have so much on his plate. Will the recording? Yes, it will be sent out. How can you contact me? I just put that in the chat, my email and my WhatsApp. You're welcome to reach out in either of those ways. The meetings for the class are not on webinars, but they're Zoom meetings, so they're more interactive. Students ideally will attend. They'll be on camera as much as possible. There'll be, interactive stuff. There will be some breakout rooms. It will be, I had to teach for a year on Zoom. It had its drawbacks, but it also taught me a lot of different skills about how to do things, with Kahoot and all sorts of things to keep it interesting and lively, inshallah. Is the masterclass free? I think we went over the different fees. With the pay what you can, hopefully, you can make it affordable. The best things in life, free are not really free. You tend to get what you pay for. I've certainly put a lot of effort into do this. Can we do all 3 tiers? You definitely don't need to do all 3 tiers, because if you do the 3rd tier, you get all the things in the first 2 tiers. So that wasn't clear. Fees went over. How long is the course? It's 6 weeks, starting January 17th, inshallah, until February 28th. Okay, so the pricing's on the website different than the pricing's here on the slides. I went over and looked at the website. I think Ruhina got it right. So the prices are the same, everything I put there, but I put bonuses above that, and I did assign a dollar value to those bonuses. So maybe that's where the confusion is coming. So sorry about that. And yeah, the website's there. So let's go back to these open questions. I think there was another one for Omar. How important are grades versus other activities in getting into the most selective schools? I'm happy to take a crack at that after you, inshallah, Omar.
Sure. So I have a personal story to share with you guys, and this is something that I never believed would have worked out in this way. I took a very difficult course load at my school. We don't have APs. They're not offered at my school, but even more important than your grades is the types of courses that you're involved in. So don't fall into the trap of taking the easiest class with the easiest teacher, because colleges see, when they look at your transcript, they're equally looking for your grades as for the types of advanced and honors courses that you're involved in. So long story short, I took 2 honors science classes. This seemed to be my Achilles heel. I ended up with 2 B pluses on my transcript, and every single person I asked told me that there's no way that you'll get into any of these selective schools because you have to have at least this GPA. And I found myself like 0.1 or 0.01 short of that. And I made a decision over the summer to bet on myself, to promise myself that I would exceed my expectations in grades in the fall, try to improve my GPA. And I applied to the most difficult school. To be honest, it was a Hail Mary. It was like, Alhamdulillah, I'm so blessed, Alhamdulillah. And it's my mom made so much diet for me and my whole family, so I can't take away from that in any way. But the point here is that, of course, your grades matter. Anyone would be lying to you if they told you that your grades, it doesn't really matter. Your grades so matter. But equally as important as your grades are the course load you take. It doesn't have to be 13 APs. It could look very different. It could be very focused on, of course, with satisfying all the requirements, but it could be very focused on the thing you are applying with to the school to help establish this narrative. What about extracurricular? Extracurricular in terms of sports?
Like, yeah, maybe what were some of the things that you were involved in other than your academics?
Oh, sure. To be honest, I was involved in too many things. Not saying that, like, too many things for me to continue with all of them, but going back to the point of having too much on your plate, I would have days where I would have like go right from school straight to sports, straight to come home, prepare for my speech tournament over the weekend, straight to working on my independent Islamic project that I was working on, straight to Quran, like bam, bam, one thing after the other. And this, alhamdulillah, it made me very efficient. And it also just, it showed me how to be excellent in many different ways. If I had to go through the list, I was very involved in advocacy, international relations. So another very big thing is to make complete use of your summers. Like, if there's one time to be a sweat, if there's one time to put your nerd glasses on, it's over the summer, because that's the exact time when most people aren't putting that work in. So every summer, or the past 2 summers, I took a class. I had an internship. Those you should pursue January, February at the latest to make sure you land a good opportunity. I had volunteering over the summer. So I said internship, course, volunteering. I would work a job in the hours that are left over. I would work, like, sometimes I would work 1 month and then the next month be working on my class and my internship. So the point is that, of course, you have to make best use of the time over the summer, and also you have to constantly be involved in whatever might balance out and round out your application, because I will tie into another question here. So there was a question a long time ago about when did you start, so to speak? Like, when do you start bolstering your resume for college? When do you start getting involved in opportunities? When do you decide what you want to major in? These are all things that will look different for every person, but the best time to start anything in your life, any type of whether it be academic, extracurricular, the best time to start is always now. You can start small. You can start with something that excites you. If you're excited by sports, then go play a sport. Figure out how you're going to balance that with your academics. And then as you're constantly building and developing things, you're going to find that you're more efficient with the time you put in. And you'll also find that you're finding the tips that are helpful to allow you to take on new opportunities. I want to add a couple things, because I only mentioned 1 or 2 extracurriculars. I had a sport every season. And that was a huge time.
What were your sports?
So I ended up playing 4 sports in my entire time in high school, even though there are 3 seasons. So I ran 2 years of cross country. My senior year, I played football for the first time ever. It was quite the experience. I played squash all 4 years. Another big thing is that schools are looking for leadership in anything that you do. And I totally mean anything in the band and on any sports team. Like I know people who found out that sailing is a very, very good sport in applying to schools, even though it's not like a traditional sport like basketball or hockey, but it's very effective because it's like there are many leadership opportunities. If you're captain of any team, it just shows that you're a leader wherever you are. Because schools, more than trying to see what your grades are in high school, they're more trying to see who you are going to be at college. What type of person are you going to be? Are you going to be a very academically oriented person who is also has many passions, who also is pursuing something greater, who has a purpose that's going to guide them and that's not going to make them become, astaghfirullah, a partier in our school? Like that's something the school is really thinking about, that because they are trying to, from a 2-minute read of all these things you're submitting, they're trying to know who you are. So it's on you to maximize all the things you are doing and to show who you are in every type of experience
Could
that
you
you do.
talk about that supplement you shared with me that had the cool first line?
Sure. So in one of my Harvard supplements, again, I didn't know if this would work, but alhamdulillah, I think it did. It was the first line was, I wash my feet in public sinks many times, or like a couple times a day, whatever, however I worded it. But this, like, of course, this is good it turned out good from a writing perspective because it's like it catches the eye right away, but it very easily led into me talking about my deen and how important my deen is in my life, how it guides everything that I do, how it gives me a rock, how it motivates me. And that's something that like would speak to a lot to a person if they have, of course, we're all very lucky to have an amazing deen, and this deen gives us so much to talk about, so much to be, so many values to uphold. These are all things that speak to something greater than you. They speak to something they speak to this great height of excellence that you're constantly trying to achieve. That's so attractive to schools. So not capitalize. So improve your deen, renew your intentions. I'm happy to move on because there's more questions.
So I just wanted to sorry, I'm just sending something quickly. One of the metaphors I like to use there's a book called Purple Cow by Seth Godin, right? And the idea is that to stand out, this is a marketing book, it's more around businesses, but to stand out in sort of a crowded marketplace, you need to look different than everyone else, right? The question was about grades versus extracurriculars. The grades alone will never get you into a top college, right? There are certain places like Texas has a policy where if you're in, the top 10% or something of your class, you get automatic admission into certain schools and things like that. But for the, Ivies and MIT, Stanford, those types of schools, grades alone will not get you in. A 1600 on your SAT will not get you in. That being said, poor grades will keep you out, right? If you it is sort of a necessity. You do not need to go to one of those schools. I want to stress that, right? Like Hamzah, I went to Harvard. Omar may be going there himself. I know a lot of very successful people from Harvard and Dunya who are miserable in their regular lives, and inshallah Allah will change their hearts, but they're not heading in the right direction akhirah-wise, right? So going to a great school like that does not ensure your eternal success. It doesn't even ensure your success here in the dunya, and you can go to many sorts of other schools. You can go to community college and then transfer to and do your final 2 years at a school and have a really great outcome. Sorry, my cat's joining the conversation. So yeah, I think don't get too fixated on academics. At the same time, we're doing this first session on study skills because academics are the single most important document when you apply is your transcript. And it's not just your grades, but it's also the levels of the classes that you take, that you've really pushed yourself, that you've challenged yourself. If your school does offer APs, that you're taking those classes, or dual enrollment classes, those sorts of things. So yeah. Let's see. Any other questions that you saw, Omar?
Yeah. What do you believe to be most effective or efficient, studying in isolation or with peers and classmates? Always the answer, the right answer is usually lies between two extremes. So there's always going to be a balance that's best for each person. But I find that working on certain things are always done better for me alone. But definitely in the sciences, I found that peer studying, meeting with teachers, this is another point that I cannot forget to mention, is that one of the best things that will serve you in whatever you're involved in is to establish good relationships with your teachers. This is something I wish I learned earlier. Meet consistently with your teachers, because you will find that if you're slow to understand in something, they'll be helping you out. If you struggle with one test, they'll give you another opportunity to catch up. But going back to the point, I think you have to find, it goes back to the point of getting to your spots on the court. You have to find what works best for you. The earlier you find out what type of student you are, the earlier you find out what type of person you are, what type of person you will be in college, the earlier you find out what guides you and what your purpose is, everything else will flow from there, because everything about you encompassed in your application has to be something that you already know about yourself. It's impossible for all 77 of you. I know deep in my heart, all 77 of you, I'm seeing Umair, I'm seeing everybody here, Ibrahim, you guys have such an immense power in you to do something truly amazing in high school, in college, wherever you go. So if you know that your purpose is gonna guide you, whether you're at Harvard, whether you're studying in Florida, whether you're in California, if you know that and you communicate that, this is the one thing that will help you get into an amazing school. And that it goes back to the point about being balanced, about improving, about perfecting what you do and whatever you do. So it seems like I'm repeating that point a lot, but it's just because of how important it is. I don't see too many more questions. Is this
Right. Do people have any questions about the if they have any questions about the class, you can put them there. I've been answering some in the chat. Just remember, I just put there if someone's not sure whether the class makes sense for them, or they just want a free 15-minute session, then you can click on that form, the type form there, and that's a great way to be there. Thank you so much for all of you who stayed well past the time. These things, mashallah, always take a while. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in your time, and may He allow us all to achieve the true success, which is His pleasure and His Jannah. Ameen, and Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah. Okay, I'm gonna see a lot of claps and hearts. This is the Zoom equivalent of the standing O. No, I don't know if they're standing, but at least they're clapping. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, everyone. MashaAllah, we really appreciate it. Yes, there's a recording. Inshallah, it will be sent out to everyone when you register. Get into my email system, and I'll send that out, and all this information. And remember that we will. People aren't still here, that many, but Omar and a panel of students will be speaking next Thursday, inshallah. So without further ado, Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.